Hey guys, thanks for joining me again today. This is part 2 of carving the Santa ornament. I started with the triangle block last week and carved in the hat and the beard. Try to get it all set up, get ready for the face. Today I'm going to go in and carve in the nose, set up the eyes, put the mustache in, and get it all ready for details. So stay tuned for this tutorial. You'll be able to see how I do it. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll try to lay out some details as far as the tools I use and the cuts that I make. And next week we'll come back and we'll finish up the details, put in the hair, cut in the eyes, and kind of finish it up. If you're interested in seeing me paint it, let me know, send me a message, and I may do a painting video the next one, and then after that come back and maybe do a full-size character or something. So hope you enjoy this. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you on chipping. Thanks. All right, we're back for part 2 of carving a Santa ornament. So I've got my Santa ornament partially blocked in there. I've got the hat set up, got the beard rounded down, and I've got it ready to go ahead and start carving the face. So before I do that, talk a little bit about a few things. I gotta have a pencil. Gotta have my micro gouges. These are Dockyard micro gouges. They're everything from 5mm down to I think 1.5mm. My carving glove, I'm going to use 1/4 inch number 9. This is a Denny. A couple of carving knives. This is about a 3/16 V-tool by Drake. And this is a 1/2 inch number 9 by Drake. So those are the tools I'm going to use today, and we'll get started in just a second. So the first thing I want to do on my Santa ornament is try to establish where the nose is going to be and where the eyes are going to be based on the size of the head. So if you think about a Santa ornament, the head's going to land somewhere up here in the hat. So we're going to say the top of the head's probably around here, right below where the flap is. And the beard is going to cover up the chin. So I'm going to say the chin is probably, I don't know, right in here somewhere. And the reason it's important that we establish those two lines is because that's going to be your head size. So your eye line is going to be in the middle of that. So if you think about from here to here, where it's halfway between, and I'm going to say the eye line is probably about right in here. So I'm going to establish that eye line just by drawing a line there. And the nose is going to be halfway in between the eye line and the bottom of the chin. So I'll mark that about here. And you'll see by doing that, that's going to allow us plenty of room for a mouth, plenty of room for a beard. Face is going to be a little smaller because, again, this is a 2x2 by 4 inch block. Had a bigger block, of course, the face would be bigger. So we'll start with that and we'll get started. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my knife and cut in the nose. So right here where we put the nose line, I'm going to come in at an angle and cut down to that line, and I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to chip that out. If that piece underneath breaks off, that's fine because that's all going to come off anyway. You can see I sloped that nose pretty good there. I'm going to come right up here and I'm going to scoop that out up to the brow. And that's going to allow me to turn that nose up a little bit. I'll get that established first before I do anything else. I'll knock off the tip of the nose. Continue to slope that up towards the top of the head or towards the brow. And you'll see there that the nose is kind of taking shape. Continue to knock this off underneath the nose. And the deeper I cut underneath the nose, the more that nose will pop out. Trying to think about symmetry and making sure there's the same amount on both sides. So the next thing I'll do is I'll come back in and put my eye line back in. I'll mark me a center line. Of course, you know the eyes will sit on both sides of that center line, and then I'll come back and I'll kind of draw my eye line in like that. So I'm going to continue to shape this nose, and you'll notice there that it's still really flat on both sides. I'm going to use my knife and I'm going to cut up the side of that nose and just kind of give it a little shape. And just realize that all this stuff that you're chipping off here is going to come off anyway. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Just come up, probably see a little better there. Come up and again take that tip off. And you can see there how that narrowed that nose down. And I'll continue to slope that up towards the forehead. And don't worry about carving those lines off, because again, you can always put those back. This is part of taking down the wood to establish where the face is going to be, instead of leaving it flat or not cutting deep enough. There you see the profile. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some the wings of the nose in. So I'm going to cut about a 45-degree angle on both sides of the bottom side of the nose. And again, thinking about symmetry, you want to try to get those as close to each other as you can. So when you look at it from the bottom, you should have a flat spot and a triangle here, a triangle there, which are about the same. They're not going to be exact, but pretty close. That way your nose looks correct. Again, you can see there. I'm going to continue to take some wood back here on both sides, just again to flatten some of that out and get ready to sit in the face. Also, what this is doing is it's again causing that hat or the fur of the hat to pop out a little further. So you can see there that there's quite a bit of wood showing underneath there now, so again it doesn't look so flat. And I'm going to come back probably later and texture this fur. So for now, I just want to kind of keep it rounded over. And again, you want to make sure that it's sitting the way that it would sit on the head. So your forehead's kind of rounded over, and you want to make sure that that fur is rounded over also. Now I'll use my pencil, and I'm going to draw the center line in again to again stay symmetrical, and I'll draw it all the way down the face. I'll mark in my eye line. And I usually slant those down kind of at an angle. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to mark in between the eye line and the nose line is the cheek line. So that's going to be about here on both sides. So the next thing I'll do is I'll take my number 9 gouge and I'm going to cut in a gouge or a groove, I guess, right on top of those eye lines on both sides. Again, trying to match those up as close as I can. Like that. I'll go ahead and use the same gouge, and where the line goes up to the top, I'm going to go ahead and split those eyes. I'll take my knife and relieve that. And that's the beginning stages of setting up the eyebrows. And again, this hat, the way it's slanted, it'll cover up part of the eyebrow on one side, but you'll probably be able to see the eyebrow on the other side. So when you get to this stage of your Santa Claus, you should be able to recognize where the nose is going to be, where the eyes are. Underneath the nose will be the mustache. You'll have a small mouth here unless the mustache covers the mouth, and then the beard. And if you look at it from the side, you should be able to see the profile. And when you're looking at the profile, notice that the nose goes back to the forehead. It kind of is scooped in and up. It's not just straight back like a ski slope. It goes in and up. And then the same thing underneath the nose. You've relieved all this wood down here so that the nose pops out. The only way you can make that nose pop out is to relieve the wood underneath it. So my next step is going to be to relieve this wood here. There's a ridge there where we cut in the gouge line for the eyes. There's a ridge on both sides about where the cheekbone is going to be. So I'm going to come in with a knife and just remove that ridge, which again will help thin down the nose. Don't worry about that line, you can always put it back. That's just an indicator mark to kind of know where that cheekbone is. And I'm going to do the same thing on both sides. Again, thinning down the nose as I go. Think symmetry. Remember, you got this line here that lets you know that you should have about the same amount of wood on both sides. And that'll help make it look realistic. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to identify how wide you want the bottom of the nose to be. So I'm going to just put some marks here on the nose. I want it to be not a huge nose, but not small either. So it'll be about that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife and cut straight in there, and then cut at an angle and take that chip out. What that'll do is it's going to help me establish where the smile line is going to go. Same thing on the other side, straight in. Turn it over, cut out at an angle, pop that chip out, clean up underneath it. Clean that up. And there's the base of your nose. So the next thing I'm going to do, and I'll draw this in, I'm going to come off of this triangle chip, and that's going to be the start of Santa's cheek. And it comes out and up to the temple area and to the hat. Like that. Same thing on the other side. And you try to match those up as best you can out. And up. And don't worry as much about whether or not these are exact, because that creates part of the caricature of the carving, is that if they're not right, then you can change the expression to match how the face looks. And again, all these pencil lines will go away. So what I'll do is I'll take my V-tool, you can see it there, and I'm going to cut in those lines. So I'll come right off of that triangle, just down and around, knocking that chip out as I go, and up to the hat, just like that. Same thing on the other side. Just like that. I'll take my knife up here where it meets the hat, pop that chip off, pop that chip off, and there. You'll see how I cut that in. And the next thing I'll do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to round over this ledge that it created when I cut the V-tool on the face side, to help smooth that face or transition that face into the hair that's going to be out here on the side. Now, because I'm concerned about shadows and creating realism like I talked about in the first video, where these triangles were taken out, I actually need to go deeper. You can see here on this side, and I'll try to get close there, that it's not cleaned up. It really needs to be deep here to show that crease that comes from the cheek and creates that top of that mustache. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in and I'm going to cut that deeper and relieve that wood there. Again, just creating a shadow, cleaning all that up, making sure that there's a good transition there. Same thing on the other side. Again, just rounding over that nose, taking it all the way up in the temple area, and I can cut that separation back in there where the eyebrows are going to be. But you can see how I've created a shadow there and there just by taking those triangle chips out. And I'm going to round over this mustache a little more where the mustache is going to go. Turn it over, relieve that wood underneath. And what I'm doing is taking this down so that the mustache will look somewhat believable, and also in the same process creating that dental mound, the round over of the mouth where the teeth and stuff should be. There we go. Now I noticed that this looks awful wide here across the top part of the bridge of the nose. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my V-tool from here up to the corner and from here up to the corner to narrow that nose down. You can see there that helped create the bridge of the nose. And I'll take one of my micro gouges and pop out those chips that it created just to kind of clean that up. And then it created a ridge here on the eye side of the cheek, so I'll use my knife once again and knock that ridge off. And you'll notice that Santa has kind of a little button nose instead of a great big wide nose. But again, that creates caricature. So it looks good that way. Now to start thinning down some of the face, the temple area is here next to the eye on both sides. And you'll notice this is not rounded over at all. The gouge mark's still there, but it doesn't taper off to the hair the way that the face is supposed to round over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this big 1/2 inch number 9, and I'm going to come from that eye groove that I cut in and go all the way out to the temple area. Same thing on the other side. It'll look like that. You'll notice kind of how big of a chip that I'm taking out there. And when I knock that off, use my knife just to knock that little chip down. And again, it helps round that face over so that it actually looks rounded instead of just flat. And as I'm carving these, I'm constantly looking, picking, knocking off rough edges, knocking off sharp spots, just making sure that I have everything kind of the way I want it. And you'll notice that this side of the cheek goes out to the right further. This side is just kind of rounded. So maybe he'll have a little smirk or something on that side. We'll see. I've still got this line up here that indicated the top of the head. I'm just going to use my knife and knock that off. And again, just continuing to clean up the carving. Make sure that if there's any rough spots or anything that is distracting your eye from the realism, that you get it knocked off there. I'm going to take a 3mm micro gouge. Probably see the profile there. And I'm going to go deep in the corner of the eye. When you're carving an eye, the deepest part of the eye is on the inside and the outside corner. And again, there's several different ways to carve an eye. This isn't always the way that I carve it. This is the way I carve it on these Santas. And what I'm doing is I'm creating that deep spot there in the eye. Again, just using the micro gouge and kind of rounding that over and cleaning it up as I go. And I kind of went in as an arrow on this side, so it's here and there. So I'm going to use my micro gouge and do the same thing. I'm going to cut out that arrow that's there and there, which is the same thing that I cut on the inside. You'll see there how it created a deep gouge right there. Do the same thing on the outside. And what I'm doing is I'm actually establishing the ball of the eye by doing this. So I'm establishing the deep part of the inside and the eye, outside of the eye, and the wood that's left in the middle, which is this wood. I'm going to round over to the outside and to the inside to create that ball mound. So I'm just going from the middle out. Flipping it over from the middle in. Trying to knock off some of those ridges that you just created. And you can see there the difference. That looks more like an eye mound. This one, once I round it over, should be similar to that one. And I won't cut that in yet. This I created a little ridge here where I cut in that arrow. I'm actually going to come back in with my number 9 and clean that up a little bit, just feathering that out to that temple area. And again, there you can see where that gives it a little more depth. I'll finish the other one. Again, just rounding. Flipping it over. Rounding. And then taking that same number 9, running it to the temple. There. I'll clean up this side a little bit. Do the same thing on this side. Again, creating some shape in the face, making sure this brow area is rounded over. And I'm going to use that number 9 again to split between the eyebrows. Taking that chip out with my knife. And there you can see how the eyes are going to be set up. I'm going to run my V-gouge underneath these cheeks again to deepen that area. Again, just following that line that I've already cut in. Same thing on this side. And again, that'll make this cheek pop out a little more. And on this side, I think I'm going to go ahead and bring this one in a little. So you'll see there, I'm knocking some of that off. Again, just trying to keep the symmetry. Make sure that it's wider, even though this one looks a little fatter than this one. We'll change that up with the expression. And I'll clean up this hairline a little bit. Do the same thing on this side. You'll see there's still some cut marks where the piece of wood was planed when I bought it. So I'm just going to knock that off. Again, just part of cleaning it up. There we go. I'm going to take my knife and again relieve this wood here that's underneath the cheek. And that'll help cause that cheek to pop out there. Cleaning it up with the V-tool, making it a little deeper. And you'll notice I use my hand kind of as a vise. If I'm holding something, I hold it like this. Just something so you can get a good grip on it and still push with your thumb. And that way you can get a little leverage. If you just try to hold it and cut it, you know, it's slick, your glove's slick, it's going to fall out of your hand. So just make sure you have a good tight grip on the carving as you're carving it. That'll cut down on the number of cuts you've gotten or will get. So try to be as safe as possible. Now we're going to move on to the mustache. If you'll notice, this side is lifted, so I think he's kind of grinning on this side. This side isn't lifted as much. So I'm going to make the mustache kind of wrap around this cheek and be a little higher, so it'll be lifted up, and it'll wrap around this one but not be quite as high. So when I draw that in, I'll come around that cheek, kind of lift it there in the middle of where the mouth is going to be, and something like that. And to cut in the mustache, I did the same thing. I use a V-tool. You just run that line. Just like that. Do the same thing on this side. Turn it over, run it up to the cheek. Cleaned it up with my knife. And so again, you've just cut in a pretty flat gouge line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to undercut that mustache and push that wood up underneath that. So where I've put that stop cut there, now I can just come in and push it, and it should chip right out. And what you're doing, again, anytime you have something that you want to come forward, you have to cut the wood underneath it away, so that'll look like it's standing out. Again, using my hand as a vise to hold it in place so it doesn't slip around. Staying close to the mustache, because again the mouth will be under that. And again, what you can do is you can use that V-tool to kind of come in and clean that up. You'll see there So that face is starting to come together. I want to stop you there. This has been episode 2 of carving a Santa ornament out of a triangle block, 2x2x4. Again, you'll see there we got the mustache established, we got the cheeks established, and the nose, the eye mounds, we got the brow line split, we've got these cheeks in, and we've got the temple area carved in. So the next time we come in, we'll establish where the mouth is going to be, work on carving the beard in, put the texture in the hair, carve the eyes, texture the hat. So one more episode and we'll be finished with this Santa Claus. I appreciate you joining me today, and stay tuned or follow back up with me next time and see how we finish this Santa out. Hope everybody has a good day, and we'll see you next time on Chipping. Alright guys, today we went through how to carve the face, get the eyes set up, the nose set up, get the mustache carved in, get all the facial features ready to put in detail. So thanks for joining me today and working on this Santa ornament with me. The next time that we come on, I'll work on carving in the details for the beard, putting in the eyes, putting in the hair for the mustache, and finishing it all up. So thanks for joining me on YouTube. Follow and like my channel. If you'd like to support my channel, buy me a coffee. There's a link there on my main page, so click on that. And I'll be doing some more tutorials in the coming weeks. Thanks for following me. Thanks for joining me. Let me know if there's anything else you want to see from me, and I'll be happy to go ahead and do some more carving on YouTube. So thanks for joining my channel, and I'll see you soon.